The Trump administration in the U.S. is facing allegations that top security officials accidentally shared classified information about war plans with a journalist on Signal, a messaging app. The editor of the Atlantic magazine, Jeffrey Goldberg, says he was added to a group chat with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. He says details about U.S. airstrikes on Houthi rebels in Yemen were discussed just hours before they were carried out. The National Security Council said the chat appears authentic and has called for an investigation. Still, Defense Secretary Hegseth denied the events took place.
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
The NSC said it was authentic.
Let's get more now from William Glucroft, who's an U.S. analyst and the deputy editor of the Parliament magazine. Good to see you, William. Pete Hegseth there denying any war plans were discussed. But should this sort of a discussion even be happening on a platform like Signal?
Well, everyone seems to say no, that these kinds of things can only take place over secure, confidential, classified, government-controlled platforms and communication devices. That Signal, as we saw in Jeffrey Goldberg's original article, is used for unclassified information, passing back sort of mundane actions of government and things of that nature, but not to the extent that we saw. We should point out that, of course, we only saw in this article a part of this conversation thread, partly because, according to Goldberg, he didn't want to reveal anything that could jeopardize national security or harm any Americans or allies, would be the going assumption. And also, we just don't, he picked and choose, of course, as anyone would when writing a story, which parts that we saw. So there's still probably a lot that we have to find out about just what was shared on this chat app.
Given the seriousness of this, what is the reaction, what is the commitment we have seen from the White House or other agencies?
Well, it's interesting that the White House, for all of its, shall we say, non-traditional ways of governing and handling the media, has actually reacted as you might assume any quote-unquote normal White House would, that they've confirmed that this is authentic, or that they believe that this was authentic, that this did actually happen. We're hearing some doublespeak about what actually constitutes a war plan and what doesn't constitute a war plan, and that they're in damage control mode, like any White House that would face this kind of scandal would be. So at least there is, and maybe this is a very low bar, but at least there is a meeting of reality here, which in other instances in the Trump administration, both in his first term and in this term, we know that that is often a challenge just to agree on basic facts. So there's an agreement of basic facts that this happened. And now the details will be probably revealed. It's interesting that the Democrats, for all of the various constitutional almost crises that the Trump administration has provoked in just the last 6-8 weeks that they've been in power, that this is the thing that the Democrats are jumping on to really try to respond to.
Donald Trump has said that he wasn't aware that this is the kind of conversation that took place, but he has really in the past railed against exactly this sort of a thing, because one remembers back in the 2016 presidential campaign, him going against Hillary Clinton and her alleged use of a private email server for official communication when she was Secretary of State. Surely there is a lot of pressure now on the same Donald Trump administration to act.
Right, but as we've seen, we live firmly in the era of throwing stones at glass houses, regardless of how much glass you're living behind. Sure, there, of course, are those comparisons. There's the whataboutisms. There's, as you just pointed out, the Hillary Clinton scandal on emails. But none of this is going to land with the Trump administration, of course. They're going to define this as they want. It's going to come down to what happens next, right? Will there be inquiries? Will there be further investigations? As I said, we've only seen a part of this Signal thread. It would have to take an act of Congress or subpoenas to really reveal more, to see if more was done and the extent to which this may have damaged or could have damaged national security.
But this is more than a US scandal, isn't it, in a sense? Because the chat mentioned so-called European freeloading. I mean, does Europe need to sit up and take note the way it was discussed in this chat?
Well, Europe, or the European Union, or NATO's European contingent should already be sitting up, and they should be for years. I think we know that that's very clear. But I'm glad you asked this question, because this, to me, was the most salient part of the bit that we've seen publicly, which it seemed that these U.S. officials recognize the importance of this part of the world to America's own strategic and economic interests, how important this is for shipping, for economic productivity, for GDP. And yet still there was this transactional element of, well, actually, we're doing this favor to the world, specifically Europe, and they should pay us back. And this seems to be a real discrepancy here where, or should I say, it confirms the zero-sum worldview of Donald Trump and his administration, that even with them recognizing that from a U.S. perspective, having shipping lanes threatened in the Red Sea is a strategic and economic threat to the United States, they only see it as good for us or good for them, not good for everyone or bad for everyone. And this is not just doing a favor for somebody else, but that is exactly how they see it. And I found that really, really revealing, that this is not just posturing, it's not just politics to the public at some campaign event, but this really is how they think.
We'll leave it there for the moment. William Glucroft, US analyst and deputy editor of the Parliament magazine. Thanks so much.